Hello everybody and welcome back to Screen Stars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2020 action thriller 24 Hours in London, a film that is written and directed by Paul Knight, and it stars Chris Johnson, Fiona Skinner, Mark Bannerman, Danny Midwinter, Neil Ward and Carl Hughes. Now this is a UK based low budget action thriller, and this focuses on an ex-convict who's been in prison, I think it's for 10 years, and he's just been released, and he basically goes on a 24-hour killing spree, and the police, D.I. Summers, played by Fiona Skinner, is playing catch up and interviewing people in relation to this, trying to find out what it's all about, what the killing spree was all about, and it is actually tied to this ex-con's dead sister, and tying up some loose ends from the past. Right, so what are my thoughts on 24 Hours in London? Well, I think this is actually quite a messy film. That is quite confused and over convoluted, and it tries, I think, way too hard to be something like a Guy Ritchie film, for example, full of, again, Tarantino type dialogue conversations around tables that isn't interesting. The dialogue isn't interesting, and the characters aren't particularly interesting, and I found a lot of the characters in this film to be incredibly cliched, from the gangsters, if you want to call it, right through to the police in the police department. Everybody was terribly cliched, and it just didn't feel particularly original, this film, to me. And you know, you can see who the ultimate bad guy reveal is going to be. I mean, it stands out like a bloody mile. There was no real surprises here for me, this film. If you're going to go into this film thinking you're going to get something original and modern and fresh, take on like a gangster film, you're going to be disappointed, because you don't get any of that with this. But what you do get is a reasonably well made film for the budget that they have, that kind of knows what it is, even though it tries to be something else now and again, and delivers on that front. There are some good performances and some less than stellar performances, shall we say, which kind of make the film feel unbalanced. And there's too many characters as well in this film to keep track of, and because none of them are particularly well written or memorable, you kind of forget who they are and what their place are in the film. Now, Guy Ritchie does a similar thing with his films. He has a lot of characters, but usually they're written differently and written better in a way that they're more memorable, and they stand out and you remember them when the film finishes. That unfortunately doesn't have that in this film, and the main protagonist in this film is pretty much silent for the, I'm trying to think, all of it. It might be all of it. So seriously uncharismatic, and his story is kind of told through other people. So you get why he's going on this killing spree, but you don't really get behind him because you don't know anything about this character. You know, he doesn't barely speak a word, and he's not a particularly charismatic and memorable character. I was about to say to lead this film. Even though he's his main character, he doesn't really lead this film. You've got other characters here like Mark Bannerman and Danny Midwinter's characters, that have more to do in this film. Better dialogue given in this film, even though it's terribly cliched at times. Now, on a British gangster film, it might fail on some levels, but one thing you do expect on these type of films is some level of ultra violence, if you like. And does this film deliver? Yes and no. I mean, there is some violence in it. I think the action and the violence is really quite sporadic, and when they give it, it's watchable for sure, and it fits the film. It's just not gratuitous in the way it does the violence. You know what I mean? It's not in your face violent, and it's not violent just because it can be violent. It's okay, the action and the violence in the film, but because you've got to remember this is quite a low budget film. So they only had a certain amount of budget to work with here, and I think what they deliver for the most part on that side of it is certainly watchable. And what we get here overall is a watchable film. It's just a bit dull in its approach, and it's a bit confused in its approach, and it tries to be too clever, and it just ends up coming across as confused. And you've got all these, you've got these police storylines going on, and these other gangster storylines going on, and it just takes away from the main issue. And the main issue is, somebody wants revenge after being in prison for 10 years. Okay, focus on that. You didn't really need to overly confuse the other areas of the film, which I felt they did, even though some of it was trying to give you some backstory. So I'm conflicted with this film. Ultimately, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. I'm going right down the middle with it. I'm conflicted with it. I didn't dislike it or anything. I certainly found it watchable, but there are far better British-based gangster flicks out there, if you like. So that's my review for 24 Little Hours. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and of course I'll see you next time for more reviews on Screen Stars.